Photogrammetry, a brief history. Very brief with a focus on the United States. Photogrammetry is the science and technology of extracting data from overlapping images for spatial mapping. Photogrammetry coincided with the development of photography and the importance of mapping. José Nicephore Nips was the first person to capture an image in 1826, and this image is outside the window of his house. Aimé Lestat first used photogrammetry in 1849 in the creation of maps from terrestrial images. And the image to the right is a photographic survey of near Versailles, France in May of 1861. Dr. Albrecht Mydien Barr coined the term photogrammetry in 1893. He founded the Royal Prussian Photogrammetric Institute. The invention of flight by the Wright brothers was critical in the development of photogrammetry in that you could capture images from the sky. Wilbur Wright was the first person to capture an aerial image. The United States Geological Survey, USGS, in 1921 established the photographic mapping branch of the topographic survey. In prior years, from 1884 to 1920, maps were previously field sketched using a tape, compass, and aneroid barometer to create contour lines. Very labor intensive and not that accurate. From 1930 to 1947, USGS developed the technique of using stereo photos, images that are slightly shot at different angles, the right and the left, to develop stereo models, and then use a stereo plotter to create topographic maps, which were faster and more accurate than trying to obtain them on the ground. This is an image of a stereo plotter.
I ask that the Congress declare a state of war.
A lot of our men, of course, were drafted, and so we went recruiting young ladies.
Mr. Quinn asked if I was interested in the job. I accepted it immediately. I was real glad to get a job at TVA.
I was fresh out of college when I was assigned to maps and surveys.
We did parcels of property, land somewhere. It was hush-hush because we weren't supposed to know what this was.
But when you saw a map that you were compiling in the newspapers, you had a pretty good idea.
They took to it, they learned quickly. Their drafting was nicer than ours.
They had greater patience than most men. They were well adapted to the photogrammetric equipment.
And I said I'd love to get into multiplex because all these girls they were hiring were making more money than I was.
In ASPRS, being a woman was not much of a barrier. If you look around now at the USGS and the civilian side, it's truly becoming one world, and this is part of it.
USGS from 1942 to 1992 began developing the standard 7.5-minute quad maps, which are still in use today, but now they're updated every 3 years. And I put a little advertisement on here from 1989 of a person that flies airplanes and takes images for developing maps that I thought was neat for the Southwest. So from about 2001 to today, USGS developed the National Map Database, which is a seamless way that the public can download topographic maps onto their computer. And these topo maps are now updated every 3 years. So now when we look at what we're doing in this class, we have the new terms for photogrammetry are now called multi-image photogrammetry, or it could be called structure for motion, or digital photogrammetry. These are all the same, different terms for the same thing that are used in different contexts. So these new technologies began in the 1990s and continues to be developed today. It's due to faster computers, digital cameras, and advances in computer software. Instead of just taking a stereo pair of images to create a 3D map, now hundreds of images rather than just a stereo pair can be used at the same time to create a very complex 3D model. The most important sources of software for photogrammetry, an open source version is called Visual FM by Dr. Wu, and he is now at Google and he works on the Google Cardboard project. Photomonitor, it's a commercial software. It's the one I first tried to use when I started teaching this class. And EduSoft, Metashape, which we'll be using this class. It's a Russian company. They've been in existence since 2006, and it's became the standard in research.